MMA Rants and Raves, UFC 117, Big Country Roy Nelson versus Junior Cigano dos Santos. Guys, let's talk about this fight. A lot of things happened in this fight that we did not even imagine would happen. Now, certain things that most people predicted did happen. And we saw what we basically expected to see. We saw Dos Santos outstriking Nelson. I mean, we know he's quicker. We know that he has the footwork. He's got the cardio. He's in shape. He's a really young guy. So we knew that Nelson's going to have trouble standing up with this guy. I mean, we just knew that. And we saw it happen. We saw Dos Santos coming out, just brutalizing Nelson. I mean, hitting him with just all those shots that have basically destroyed all these top-ranked heavyweights that he's faced before. But to my shock, Nelson was absorbing it. I mean, he got hit. He looked like he was hurt, but he got back up again. I mean, he was dropped at one point, and Dos Santos was coming in for the kill like he always does. This guy is just a destroyer. He's a finisher. If he gets somebody down, smells blood, and finishes the fight like he did against Werdum. But this guy just got right back up again, just kept on fighting, absorbing all kinds of punches. I mean, he was just landing, it seemed, about everything. I mean, lefts, rights, uppercuts. Then he was going with jabs. I mean, wow. Nelson just taking all of it. I mean, you know, he was getting hit so hard, especially when he broke that clinch, hit him with a knee. His head just popped back. You saw his hair flying up. I mean, that was just crazy. Just crazy. Tough as nails. Tough son of a gun, Roy Nelson. I don't know if there's anybody, I mean, as tough as this guy. Wow. Tough guy to take all that. And he was trying to fight back. You know, to his credit, he did land some shots. I mean, Dos Santos had a really nasty cut under his eye, and he looked battered. And for the first time in Dos Santos' career, he had to work. He was pressed. He was pushed. And it was interesting to see. It was fascinating to watch, to see how Dos Santos would react. I mean, he's used to just destroying guys. I mean, in minutes into the first round, and they're just running around the ring and just celebrating. And he said, wow, this guy's taking a lot of abuse, and he has dangerous knockout power. He's got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got wrestling. What am I going to do? And this is the making of a true MMA fighter. When you're pressed, okay, and you have to dig down, and you have to think of a game plan. You have to think about what to do. That's the mark of a great fighter. And Dos Santos passed that test. He was hitting him with everything he had, couldn't put him away. And you even saw Dos Santos, you know, the guy who you expect to have the better cardio. And he was getting tired, and anybody would. I mean, he was just hitting him with everything. And he was breathing a little bit heavier. What did he do? Brilliant game plan. He tried to pace himself. Rather than throwing these big uppercuts and lefts and rights, what he did was more jabs, distance himself, stay away from Nelson's dangerous takedowns. And also, he's a guy who has really dangerous hands, so he tried to use his reach and his quickness to bring some distance between Nelson. And that was really smart, because then he can gather himself, get his second win back. And that's what he was doing. He was doing it very effectively. And he was landing a lot of those jabs. And people think that those jabs don't have much of an effect like the other punches, but they sure do. You know, you got a 4-ounce glove and you have a cast under it. You get hit with that. Wow. It's going to hurt anybody. And it was hurting Nelson. Maybe it didn't seem that way, but it sure was hurting him. So it was very effective. And then we saw something just amazing. We actually saw towards later on in the fight, we saw Dos Santos going for a takedown. I mean, wow. You know, we were learning things about Dos Santos, and I said this in my prior vlogs about him. There's so much we don't know about this guy. There's so many mysteries as far as his ground game. Now we saw that he's got a ground game. I mean, it was just the opposite. We thought it was going to be Nelson that was trying to get him down, and he took Nelson down. So I was really surprised by that. This guy is just a finisher. I mean, he wants to do it any way he can. He's really been training his ground game, his jiu-jitsu. You could just see it. The situation was like this. It was just Dos Santos landing more strikes, knocking Nelson down a lot. And he was outclassing him in the stand-up game. It was just Nelson's chin. And of course, he landed some good punches too that really kept him in this fight. But it wasn't enough to win, and Dos Santos took the fight. Now, people are talking about, the announcers actually said this, one of the announcers, that if this guy would slim down, if he would get in better shape, maybe it would help his cardio, because he did look very tired at the end of the fight. Would that be a good idea for Nelson? Because now we know that he's amazingly tough. We know he's got heavy hands. I mean, you know, he did hit Dos Santos some good shots. Of course, Dos Santos' striking is superior. I mean, he outclassed him in the striking game. But he's got dangerous heavy hands, and you saw even the shots that he hit him with, he did some damage. You know, he's got black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We haven't seen it because he couldn't get Dos Santos down. And he's got that wrestling base, so he's very well-rounded. It's funny you call him that because the way he looks, well-rounded. And, I mean, the guy's just... I mean, you think he's a joke, but he's no joke. We learned that in this fight. Now, the question is, should he do that? Now, I kind of disagree with that. And the reason I disagree is because he really did what he had to do in this fight. He closed the distance on Dos Santos. No other fighter was able to do that. He just couldn't get Dos Santos down. So, the question is, I mean, he's already a great wrestler. Can he be better? Or is it just that Dos Santos cannot be taken down? I mean, that's the bottom line. So, Big Country's future looks good. He's really a good fighter. And he's going to come back from this. I mean, he really pushed Dos Santos. Wow. I mean, he really, really pushed him. We learned a lot about him. I mean, he's going to get better, and he is. Maybe his takedowns can get better. His takedown attempts can get better. And in that beginning of that fight, where he had the clinch, maybe that can develop into a takedown. And we really haven't seen Dos Santos in another mystery with Dos Santos. Well, when you saw him on top, we've never seen him on his back, so how well would he do? Now, the question is, can somebody get good enough to do that? So that remains to be seen, but that's something probably Nelson's going to be thinking about at the end of this fight. But as far as conditioning, I don't think that was really a factor, because if he was in that kind of conditioning, he's still not going to outstrike Dos Santos. And his conditioning won't help him get him down any better. If anything, that fat is going to help him, because if he's laying on you, peppering you with ground and pound, it's going to wear out on you much more having a heavy guy on top of you. And then, of course, you have to understand, people think that looks is everything. You know, looks can be deceiving. Remember the Mike Russo-Todd Duffy fight? You know, who looked more tired in that fight? It looked like Duffy was really getting tired. Because, as you well know, those big muscles are a lot of lactic acid and oxygen. Look at Mariusz Pudzianowski. I mean, he was getting tired in seconds into that fight, turning red and all that. Then you have a guy like Mike Russo, you know, who has a lot of modern fat on him. And he looked good at the end of that fight. He looked a lot less tired than the other guy who looks like a He-Man figurine and Todd Duffy. So I don't think it's really that. He's good the way he is. He just has to work a little bit more. I mean, Big Country's just growing. He's getting better and better. Another thing I wanted to mention, which was comical, they keep on talking about his belly fat, you know, that slow motion kick. When Dos Santos hit that kick right to the belly, people said, oh yeah, that's the key. Just kick him in the stomach and he'll just crumble. You'll see his lunch coming out in the middle of the octagon. That's not what happened. And I agree with the announcer. Maybe he has sweaters under there. That's not fat. But the way he kicked it, it just looked like kicking water, like it started to ripple, you know. It's really something. This guy is just really an interesting fighter, fun to watch. Anyway, I want to talk about Dos Santos again. You know something, guys? And I want your opinion on this. Is there anybody that can stop Junior Dos Santos? And I repeat this because we know that he has the best striking as a heavyweight in the UFC by far. I don't think anybody comes close to the way this guy hits. I mean, it's ferocious. He's got unbelievable power with speed, ferocity. I mean, he just is relentless. The strikes just come from everywhere. You can't even block them. You just saw Nelson trying to cover up and prevent that assault, those bombs, those... I mean, he's got that, and now you have something else that we learned, because now that Dos Santos was really pushed, he's impossible to take down. I mean, for the first time in his career, he's facing a guy who's a world-class wrestler. And he had him in a full clinch, had him in a body lock, couldn't take the guy down. It's amazing. I mean, world-class strikers, you look at Anderson Silva, he can be taken down easily. You cannot take down Dos Santos, and it's just the opposite. This fight just turned everything on its head, all logic on its head. He actually took Nelson down. So this guy, maybe he's a good wrestler. He said it himself before the fight. He said, my wrestling is good. You know, this guy probably is a wrestler too. I mean, it's just sick. How good is Junior Dos Santos? I mean, who's going to be able to beat this guy? If you can't take him down, he forces you into a stand-up game with a guy who has the best stand-up in the heavyweight division. I mean, it's incredible. I don't know if there's anybody that can take him down. And the only guy that can possibly test him in takedowns is probably a big, strong grizzly bear like Brock Lesnar. Maybe Nelson is just not physically strong enough to get this guy down. Maybe you just need brute power to force him to the ground, and maybe it makes you wonder, maybe Brock Lesnar is the only guy that can take him down. But if you can't, you're doomed. I mean, there's no way that you're going to be able to contend with this guy. He's a one-man wrecking crew. The guy is a destroyer. It makes you wonder if anybody can stop this guy. I mean, and that's what I was talking about. I made a whole vlog about who should get the title shot. Should it be Velasquez or Dos Santos? And now it really makes you wonder who deserves that title shot. Of course, Velasquez deserves a title shot. A great fighter. But look at this guy. It's just amazing how good he is. I mean, we're learning more and more about him every time we see him. An incredible fighter. It's just scary. It makes you wonder if anybody can stop this guy. I'd like to know what you think about it. Would like to know what you thought about this amazing UFC 117 card. Please leave your comments below the video, rate this video, and subscribe. And thank you for tuning in.